We're rolling. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Patricia. Um, I really appreciate you reaching out and us having this opportunity, and I'm grateful.
I'm excited to be here.
Absolutely, cool. So you own a salon that you also you rent that out to independent uh, other cosmetologists, and then you have coaching on the side. So just tell us a little bit about like what you're doing right now and all the projects you got going on.
So I have a commission salon and I also have salon suites that I rent out to independent stylists because that is the next step for most hairstylists. I also have an education program where I teach business marketing and extensions along with social media to hairstylists to transform their business behind the chair to start working smarter, not harder. And I also coach for a company called Destroy the Hairdresser, and their mission is to change our industry and get rid of all of the bad hairstylist practices that are happening inside of our industry.
Yeah, you know what? When you talk about like cosmetology and when you talk and all the avenues, cosmetology specifically, mostly has to do with hair, but then you kind of like branch out into all the other things that go along with like hair. So like, estheticians, um, and you and then you get into like uh, eyebrows and lashes and these things, and it's kind of crazy how much is going on in the space. Like people don't like I didn't know this until I had prior experience with it, that like it's kind of the wild west out there in some places. Is that kind of what
Yeah,
you're talking about?
there's a lot of different services and things you can do inside of our industry, which is amazing because there is something for everybody.
Yeah.
So you can find that one thing that you're super passionate about and really specialize in it
Yeah.
and create an amazing business for yourself and create an amazing just an amazing life because there's so much money that can be made inside of the beauty industry. I mean, it's $1 billion industry. So
Yeah.
it really is a great place for someone to kind of dabble in if they really do want to become an entrepreneur because there's so many opportunities for that.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what are some of like, you mentioned some of the practices that you want to get rid of in the industry. What are some of those? And like, especially since I love that this industry, um, I love talking about it like I'm not in it personally, right? But I love talking about it because it's a great way for anybody to get into to starting a business that you don't have to do a lot of like you don't have to do a lot of testing on. Like it's something that everybody wants, right? They need their haircut, they want to look good, they want to look beautiful. It helps, people feel like they're doing good, right? Because they're helping other people feel beautiful. They're giving people confidence. Um, so it's a great industry to get into. But what are some of the things that you were talking about earlier that you want to change or get rid of?
So, with Destroy the Hairdresser, we really focus on destroying bad leadership. There are so many bad salon owners out there who really just wanted to open a business but didn't know how to truly lead people. So, it really does result in a lot of toxic environments and it really does destroy the business and the careers of a lot of people that want to join our industry. There's a lot of poverty consciousness inside of our industry where people don't feel worthy or don't feel capable of charging their worth and what they should for what they're doing. So a lot of hairstylists do not charge what they're supposed to, and they end up living in like poverty level, like they end up earning poverty level incomes. So that's something that we really focus on. We also focus on incorporating emotional intelligence inside of being a business owner because running a business based on your emotions creates a not so great outcome. So, being able to teach people how to emotionally control their emotions and to run their business on logic instead of reactively is something that we really focus on.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack in that. Specifically, I guess I kind of want to go back to the first question, right? Like giving salon owners confidence, right? And teaching them how to run a business. Because funny enough, like my wife went to did a cosmetology school, And yeah, you're right. Like they don't really teach the business side of things. They make sure you get your license in hair, and really that's with anything, right? Like school does the same thing, or any kind of trade. You know, they show it to you, but then they're missing like the business side of it. So how do you go about teaching like the confidence and the entrepreneurship side of like owning a salon and then the cosmetology part?
So I think a lot of salon owners are lacking systems inside of their business, and systems allow you to create consistent results. And when you are when you are able to duplicate the results inside of your business, it creates a better outcome and it creates an atmosphere that you don't need to micromanage.
Mhm.
Also, when it comes to being a salon owner, I think a lot of salon owners run their business on emotion. So they
Yeah.
will emotionally hold on to people that are not right for their business. And they emotionally run their business and make financial decisions out of fear. They make, hiring decisions out of fear. So there's a lot of things that happen inside of our industry that kind of create just an overall toxic environment. So when you can incorporate these systems and incorporate mindset shifts, incorporate personal responsibility, which is huge. I think a lot of people in our industry lack personal responsibility. It really does allow these salon owners to transform their businesses into not so profitable, into businesses that run themselves and that are actually lucrative.
Yeah. I like that, and they're all so important. So how do you I mean, you mentioned that they get involved with people who aren't right for their businesses, and I'm assuming that you meant maybe partners or something like that. But do you also, I mean, do you also go over like customers that might not be right for your business?
Yes. So when we hire stylists inside of our business, the stylists essentially are the ones that are generating revenue.
Right.
Most salons, they're commission based. So when your top earner is creating a toxic environment, if they're not following rules, a lot of salon owners will want to hold on to them in fear because they're afraid to
Yeah.
lose that revenue.
Yeah.
Also, there's a lot of abusive behavior from clients. There is.
Oh
Clients can be
yeah.
very abusive, and a lot of salon owners will allow the abusive behavior inside of their space. Abusive behavior that is geared towards their employees, their stylists, staff members, because they want to take that revenue inside of their business. So, creating boundaries inside of your business with your staff and with customers is another thing that we really focus on because boundaries allow you to have a very clear cut understanding of what is allowed and what isn't allowed.
Absolutely. And I like that you brought that up because I'm a big advocate of that. Like I've been in sales my whole career. And it took me a long time and a lot of money to learn that lesson that some people just aren't worth, you know what I mean? Like they're not worth dealing with. You know what I mean? It's not worth the brain damage, right? There's more than just like the revenue that's brought in. Um, and that ties into like my second question, which is how do you teach somebody to charge what they're worth?
Well, there is a lot of mindset work that has to go behind that. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of fear, and it's pushing through that fear and getting to the other side. So
Yeah.
for us, we work on a lot of price increases. And when I say price increases, most salons and stylists will only increase their prices between $5 and $10.
Uh-huh.
And they'll do that maybe like every 2 years. Like this is something that's very common inside of our business because they're afraid to upset their clients and they're afraid to lose clients. For us, inside of what we're doing at Destroy the Hairdresser, we increase prices anywhere from 25% to 100%. So we
Right
get our
on.
students to double their prices. And once we push them to actually implement and actually get through that pain and send out the email, and then they realize that they don't lose as many clients as they think. So I just had one of my students increase her prices by 25% and she didn't lose any clients. And our goal was to actually have clients drop off. So
Yeah.
it's just working through that fear. And it's actually like working through understanding why you aren't comfortable. Like, what is the actual like fear and thought process behind it so you can kind of break it down and almost debunk these stories that these stylists tell themselves on why they can't charge what they should.
Yeah, isn't that funny though, how, the fears and the stories that we tell ourselves about why something isn't possible, uh,
Hmm.
just trips you up, and they're not real. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, they're not real. So, it's funny, do you see a trend? Do you see people, um, having the same fears and or the same thoughts when you go to, like, price increase?
Oh yeah, there's a very common thread of reasons. They don't feel like their work is good enough, that you can't charge those prices in my area. Other salons are only charging this, so I have to charge this. It's a very, very common,
Yeah.
like there's common things that are said all the time. And in reality, like we need to do what's best for our business. We need to look at numbers and break down our numbers. A lot of salon owners aren't looking at numbers either, so they're charging
Yeah.
what they are charging because the salon next door is charging that, when in reality their overhead could be higher, their product costs could be higher. So when you actually break down the numbers and show them that they're bleeding out, I think that's another eye opener too. But working through those fears, you can charge whatever you want if your clients are willing to pay.
Yeah, that's what's up. I liked it, but it's true. And you know what I've learned, working with small businesses and in sales and things like this is l- low prices can actually hurt you more than high prices, right? Because, if a price is too low, it can almost be like, what's wrong with it? You get
Yes.
into like this, well, okay, are they, because they do reflect, in a sense, sometimes what's going on behind the scenes, right? Like, if you believe that, you're gonna charge that, and that's the message that you're sending to clients, you know what I mean? Is like this, not cheap, but you know what I mean? It's like that, you get what you put out, right?
It's like Walmart or Louis Vuitton. Like, I wouldn't buy a purse at Walmart
Sure.
because I know it's low price, which means the quality probably isn't great.
Yeah.
Now, if I go to Louis Vuitton and I'm spending $1,000 on a purse, like I expect the best quality and I'm probably going to experience that as well.
Yeah.
So, I know personally for me, like my hair is really important to me. Like I would never go to a salon that charged $50 for a haircut. I would probably the lowest I would probably go, and I know this may be crazy for some people, but I would look for a salon that charged probably $150 because I
Yeah.
want to know that I'm getting an amazing haircut. And I know that I might not get an amazing haircut for $50.
Yeah, isn't that true? But yeah, that's the process, and it's funny because, like, I don't think that's crazy because you wanna know, like, that you're getting what you're paying for, you know what I mean? And there is a point of, when you're talking about pricing products and services, there is a point where it's like, this is good for me, it's good for you, and then you weed out. I mean, that's a great way also to weed out some of the abusive customers,
Hmm.
and people you don't want to deal with. Like, if like, that's great, dude. It also makes it, you prices put you in the market you want to be in. Do you want Louis Vuitton customers? You want Walmart customers? I
Right.
don't want I don't want Walmart customers, man. I want Louis Vuitton customers.
And I think there's a stigma too,
Mhm.
for people outside of our industry. There is a lot of backlash from people
Mm.
who think that hairstylists shouldn't make money.
Why is that? That's crazy to me because, like, I
Yeah,
mean, I
I
know I
don't
don't
know.
have hair. I know I don't have hair, but I know that people who do hair and they're in the beauty industry, that's a very fulfilling industry. Like,
And
you
we
get
make
to,
people feel good. Yeah,
yeah. What I mean, how do you put a price on the confidence that you give people? Like, that changes everything. You know what I
it
mean?
really does. Yeah,
Yeah,
it
it's
changes
it's
everything.
It's a beautiful, I mean, beautiful. Yeah, but it's a beautiful industry. It's a great thing to be in and to be involved with. And what I love about it is you give people, like, when you do this coaching and when you offer these programs, like, you're giving people independence as well. You're giving, I know that the beauty industry is a majority, uh, woman industry.
Hmm.
Although there are some men in there, and that's great, but I know a majority is women, and it's a wonderful thing to be able to give another woman that confidence and that independence that, like, she can make it and she can be a badass and she can, earn her own money and do whatever she wants. You know what I mean?
That's the reason why I opened my salon, was to
Wow.
give the people that work for me financial independence.
Yeah.
Growing up, my mom was never financially independent, and I saw how that really affected us as, she was a single mom, and how it affected her. So it was my mission to create a space where women can come and actually make a living and be able to take care of themselves. That was my purpose behind why I opened my salon.
Wow. And how long have you been in this industry?
So I've been in the industry for 20 years, and I've
Awesome.
had my salon for 8.
Okay. And
Yeah.
so tell us the story, because that's what I love the most. Uh, Tell us the story about why you went from what you were doing before the salon to what were you doing before the salon? Were you just cutting hair in a
So
or
I worked for another commission salon for 10 years.
okay.
And I was there for a long time, and I just knew that I had no more opportunity for growth, and I had a clear vision and a passion for the experience I wanted my clients to have when they were sitting in my chair.
Mhm.
And I was kind of held hostage to the salon's rules. Like, we were only given 30 minutes for most services, which you can't provide a great
Wow.
service in 30 minutes, because he was only focused on the amount of clients that we could get in, instead of charging the price that we could, and focus on the experience. So I knew I wanted to shift that part of the business that was happening for me.
Yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, so I left and I rented a chair for a couple years, because I really kind of wanted to figure out like the business aspect. And then after that, I ended up opening my salon.
That's great. So you that was the kind of the catalyst, was working in the salon and realizing that you couldn't give the value that you wanted to give to your clients. And what was learning the business side like for you? Was there anything that like really surprised you?
Yeah, so there's so much that surprised me. There's so much that goes into running a salon. There's marketing, there's managing our clients, there's product orders, taxes, sales tax, really scheduling things so that things are efficient. Obviously,
Yeah.
booking appointments. I mean, there's so many tiny details that go into it. It was a lot of work, and I wasn't
Yeah.
expecting it to be that much. Yeah,
It
I
that's
know.
always the surprise though. I mean, it happened to me, and it happens to a lot I mean, it happens to a lot of people, where you get in, you're like, "I wanna do this," and then you're like, "Man, this is tough." There's so many, stepping stones and roadblocks that can come up, but how did you deal with that? And then how do you teach your clients to, overcome these obstacles that they'll inevitably find in business?
So when I first opened my business, I didn't think that people could do things as good as me. So I wanted to do everything inside of my business, which is my ego, and it was so stupid. So I learned that the best way to really run a business is find people who can do things better than you, and hire them and delegate things out, and really just focus on the things that make your business money that you can do, because you can't be good at everything. And when you can really focus and hone in on the value that you bring personally to your business, that's when your business is going to thrive.
Mhm.
And when you find the people that are better at things than you, and you have all of these people working on your business with you, it grows your business at a rapid rate, way faster than you can do by yourself. And just really putting, like I said, putting systems in place, having a system for everything,
Yeah.
because
Yeah, go ahead.
you don't want to rely on people. You want to rely on systems, because when someone leaves your business and you're relying on that person, then you're screwed. Whereas if you have a system, then when somebody new comes in, they can take over and it's smooth sailing.
Yeah, and you just don't skip a beat. You just go, go,
Mhm.
go. Yeah, that is dangerous, giving all the power to one or two people. Yeah, and I mean, that's a perfect way to run a business, is just by systems. Like, we stick to the system. It doesn't matter if you do it, or you know what I mean. Like, you're selective with who you hire, but once you have the person, right, it doesn't matter if it's this right person or that right person. You just keep going, right? So
Yeah.
yeah, that's great. Let me ask you this, because you deal with a lot of, you have your own salon, you deal with a lot of owners. What do you think is the most, um, what aspect do you think people overthink the most? Like, what do they overthink the most?
Oh my gosh, that's a good question. I think people, oh gosh, overthink. I think they honestly overthink everything. And
It's a great answer
so,
though.
like,
Yeah.
every little detail, and that's why it's so hard to choose which one is best. They overthink the client experience. They overthink the products they're going to use. They overthink like what their logo is going to look like. They really do overthink every little thing.
Mhm.
And what really matters is knowing how to make things simple, because the simpler they are, the more like you can focus on what really makes you happy. Um, not people, not everyone's going to come to you because you use a certain product line. Not everyone's going to come to you because you have the biggest and best salon. They really come to you because they connect with you. And I think creating a connection and building trust through your marketing is the best way to build your business. And then all of the other things are just like little extras. But I think building trust and connection with people that are sitting in your chair is the most important part of your business.
Yeah, everything else, you can learn and teach, but not overthinking the client experience.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's great. I mean, that's great though. I mean, and it's so crazy how I mean that's the perfect answer by the way. I love it because it really is that's what matters is not overthinking the customer because that's who they're there for, you know what I mean? And then everything else should be focused on that. So what do you think I mean, sorry, let me ask this question first. What do you teach so salon owners? I mean, you teach them the systems, you teach them the processes, and then you go through mindset. But I guess my question is how is that implemented?
So I think it really starts with making the mindset shifts first. Like, that's the most important part.
Hmm.
Because if you don't know how to properly lead your team, you are not going to keep them. And
Hmm.
without a team of stylists, then your salon cannot be profitable.
Hmm.
So making those shifts, and it really is explaining things to my students in a way that there's almost like a light bulb moment. And once that light bulb moment happens, it's an immediate shift in what they do.
Hmm.
So we really do, like, we focus on reactivity, and a lot of salon owners don't even know what reactivity is, and they're running their whole life on reactive moments. So that's
Oh.
essentially running your life on autopilot. So when, like, something happens, like, it's okay,
Yeah.
so a situation happens, it sparks an emotion, that emotion triggers a response.
Yeah.
And essentially your emotion is what is creating your response, instead of actually pausing and really putting some thought behind what you're doing. So when you can identify your reactivity and understand that it's just a moment that you should not be making a decision on, it allows them to start really processing what they're doing inside of their business and immediately making changes, because now they're identifying this behavior and they're like, shit, once I see it, I can't unsee it. Like, it's going to be
Yeah.
there. So it
Yeah.
just immediately, it's like, like a light bulb. It just happens.
Yeah, that's great. And I love that you said like reactivity because it's that can hurt us, right? Like that can really be a hindrance in our business with seeing something and and going off, getting really making decisions if you're really angry. And you know what's crazy? Like making decisions if you're really like happy, if you're in a really good mood, like that can,
Hmm.
that doesn't always mean you're going to make the right decision
Yeah.
either, right? So
Yeah.
just go
Yeah,
ahead.
and even the way we treat people inside of our business. Like,
Mhm.
how often do people mess things up and we immediately respond with anger?
Mhm.
So that
Yeah.
really, it deflates the way that people feel inside of our business. And I think that's important, is how we make people feel inside of our business, not necessarily like, how we do things. It's how do you make your staff feel?
Yeah. So yeah, and that's a great point. What are some of the systems that you teach to your students on how to overcome reactivity?
So when we're talking about reactivity, one, you have to identify which is your primary reactive response. So there's fight, flight, or fright.
Okay.
And
Ooh,
fight is
fright.
pretty, yeah. Fight is
Okay.
pretty explanatory. Like it's
Yeah.
just, you are very combative.
Uh-huh.
Flight is you like to run away from your problems
Right.
and you don't face things. So there's a lot of leaders who will just let things build up. They don't want to have any confrontation with their staff members. So they avoid like conversations when they're not doing things correctly. And then you have fright, and those are the people who just freeze and don't take any action.
Oh. Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's they just freeze up. They yeah.
So
Interesting.
you have to do the opposite of what your reactivity is telling you to find fulfillment inside of your business and to create fulfillment
Mm.
inside of your business.
What do you mean by do the opposite?
So if you are a fight response, then obviously pausing and taking a moment to step away before you can respond to what's happening until
Mhm,
you can have a clear head and you can respond in a very calm manner.
mhm.
So flights like to run away from their problems. So the opposite would be facing the problem
Oh, yeah,
and
yeah,
actually dealing with it in the moment.
right.
And fright want to freeze, and that would actually also be taking action.
Yeah, yeah. Excuse me. That's great though. I've never thought of it like that. Like, how do you overcome these things and just do the opposite? Excuse me, because, that's a big d yeah, that's a great way that's a great simple way to do that. I love simplicity. I don't and that's why I like that overthink or overcomplicate question because it's like, it's really not as hard as you think it is? We just need to, like, do the opposite, right? Deal with it, take some time to collect your thoughts and handle it appropriately. Like, that's not crazy, right? It's not anything crazy.
It's really simple.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So,
Simple, but so difficult.
isn't it, right? That's the paradox of solving problems. It's so simple that it's impossible, right? And, and do you find that you get a lot of, I guess let me rephrase the question. What when when you present these ideas, right? When you present mindset, when you present, um, the fright or flight or fight, right? What are some of the responses you get there? Like, what are some of the common things that you run into?
Oh, I'm not reactive.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't do that. I'm like,
Oh,
everyone is reactive. It's a part of your brain. It's a part of your brain. Every single
yeah,
human has it. It's a defense response that is literally embedded in our brain. Like
yeah.
everyone has a reactive system. So I think
Yeah.
a lot of people deny. Some people have amazing aha moments, and some people just like they disappear. So like
They
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 won't they
flee.
won't like they just leave because they don't want to
Yeah.
deal with it because it's very hard.
Yeah, you
So
gotta
there's
be
lots
very
of different
self-aware
things.
to do that.
But the
You gotta
students
be
that stay, they have amazing transformations.
Yeah, well, I mean, you'd have to, it's inevitable, right? Like, when you
Mhm,
start doing I know, again, so simple that it's impossible. It's like, if you just start doing these things, you're gonna see results?
mhm.
You just have to keep going, keep working, keep moving, um, and that's great. So tell me a little bit more about how you got started just in the beauty industry in general. I know we talked a little bit about it, but I'd love for you to kind of give us a little more about your story and take us back to when this all started and how you learned these things and what made you do it.
So I graduated high school and I tried community college for a little bit and it just was not for me. I was either
Okay.
going to be a high school art teacher because I love being creative,
Yeah.
or I was going to be a hairstylist. So my family is like, you need to go to college. Like, you should go to college. So it's like, okay, I'll try college. And it just wasn't for me. I didn't
Yeah.
like it. I have severe ADD.
Me too.
So,
By
like,
the way,
trying
me
to pay
too.
attention and do what I needed to do, in college just didn't work for me. So, my aunt was a hairstylist, and I was like, "Okay, well, I'm just gonna go to beauty school." And that's what I did. Yeah. And it was
There
the
you go.
best decision I could have ever made.
Yeah, well, I mean, clearly you're killing it. You're crushing it. So
Thank you.
so that's great. Was it hard for you to was it was it hard for you to realize that community college wasn't for you, or was that a pretty easy, like, you know what, I tried it, I gave it a shot, I'm out.
No, I was sleeping in class because it was
Oh.
so boring. Literally, my teacher was like, "You really should drop my class. Like, you just fall asleep." He was so boring. Like, literally, he was so boring. No matter how much coffee, caffeine I consumed, I could not stay awake in his class.
It was just
So
Terry.
I was just like, I knew it wasn't for me. Like, I just
Yeah,
wasn't into it. I wasn't feeling it. So
yeah.
I knew. I knew I didn't want to go in the first place. I think I just kind of went to just make my parents happy.
Your parents, how did they feel about that when you decided that, you know what, like, I can't do this?
Well, I had to pay the rest of my tuition for that year, so that was my lesson. They're like, "Well, you have to pay for this now," and I did. I paid it off. It was community college. I think it was like a couple $1,000s. It wasn't that
Yeah,
much.
yeah, it was okay.
So that was my learning lesson. My parents pretty much they let me learn the hard way, which actually was the best thing that they could have done because learning the hard way really does it wakes you up and you learn.
Yeah, it's the only way, right?
Yeah, and honestly, my mom never went to school. My dad didn't go to college, so I think it was just something that they really wanted for their kids.
Yeah.
So when I told them I was going to beauty school, I really didn't get the best response because I think that was like, I mean, 20 years ago, it was like where like the college dropouts went to like do something.
Yeah,
So there was that stigma behind it. But I think after I graduated and I started working and they saw that I was actually making money, I don't think they really cared after that. And I was happy.
yeah, yeah, you're happy, you're making money. I it's so crazy to me. Like, did your parents grow up in the Midwest, by the way?
Yes,
Are
they
they
did.
are they both from the Midwest?
Chicago
I
born and raised.
There you go. All right, cool. Because I grew up in the Midwest too, and it's just that, I think it's like parents really want the best for you, but I think growing up in the Midwest, they just see, like, all this potential, and they get caught up. Because my parents, and I'm just speaking from my experience, but, it was like college was like the only way to, like, get out,
Hmm.
because if you didn't go to college, what were you gonna do? And it's like, I wish we would have had more of that, like, cosmetology, like, introduction to trades. So, like, cosmetology, barber school, plumbing, electricity, whatever, right? Like, those guys, I mean, they're not a joke. They make a lot of money.
They make a
Cosmet
killing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
cosmetologists and barbers and estheticians, you know, I see some of those. I worked with a school up here, and I helped their sales team. So sell, like, I helped them with coaching and helped them sell, and helped them with closing and things like that. And man, I walked into that beauty school and I was like, "Holy crap, you guys are killing it." And I'm like, and these weren't like small ticket things, I'm like, I'm thinking in my head, like, okay, we're gonna sell a course for a couple $100. So no, we weren't, they weren't playing around. And I was like, this is really cool. This is
Yeah.
really cool to see, like, what you can do with this and what you can give people. So I have nothing but respect for, like, the trades, especially the beauty industry. It's a crazy awesome thing. I wish I wish we
It's amazing.
I wish we would have had more. Like, I'm serious. Like, I wish we would have had more. And which raises a question, right? Like, why don't you think we had more of that?
Um, I I think that our society pushes people into going to college because it is a great way for people to make money, as in like the schools and stuff, for real. Um,
I
and
agree.
I
Couldn't agree
and
more.
I think the lack of tradesmen and the lack of these professions that are really needed and the people and jobs that are available and that are open is a sure sign that like I don't know that maybe like that wasn't the right decision because there is a lack of plumbers, there's a lack of handyman, there's a lack of electricians.
Mhm.
So I think those are really really important jobs. And honestly I think there is like a sense of like being special when you have a degree. Like there's almost like a persona that's built around like what you do,
Yeah.
and I think that's one of the reasons why too.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Like, I got my degree and then realized, like, very quickly that first of all, it wasn't like you don't really learn a whole lot. I'm just gonna be like, I went through my degree and I was like, I learned enough to have an intelligent conversation, but like there's a reason why you go from college to entry level because you don't
Mhm.
know anything, you know.
Yeah.
You don't really know what happens and how it's applied in real life. So that was a big shock for me, and I was like, ugh. But then I got into sales, which you don't need a degree for, uh, and unfortunately had to. I mean, fortunately and unfortunately, I made enough money to pay off my degree, but but now it just collects dust on the shelf because I'm like, I realize I can make more money doing something else. You know what I
I
mean?
know. That's the thing. Like, I charge $150 an hour to do somebody's hair.
Yeah.
Like, that's crazy. Like, I can't even believe that I charge that. But I mean, people are paying it. And that's just what
Yeah.
my time is worth when I'm standing behind the chair if I'm going to be stepping away from things that I really need to do to grow my business.
Yeah.
And people like who spent 4 years, 6 years getting their degrees, they have all of this college debt and they're paying it off and they're working jobs that aren't really even paying what they thought that they were going to make.
Yeah, they're not paying what the price of the degree told them they should be worth.
Hmm.
You spent 50 grand on a let's say, you charge $50,000 for one of your courses. I mean, that would be a hard sell if you were like the colleges, right? Now,
People would want results.
yeah,
They would demand results for
yeah,
that
they'd be like,
much.
"Hey, I better be making 100 grand
Right.
or something, or my money back." Yeah, it's bonkers, but you're totally right. You can wait, and to put $150 an hour into perspective, like that's on call like ER doctor status.
Hmm.
That's like, which is great. Like, and I think you should, and I think it's like more power to you. Run it, dude. As long as the check doesn't bounce, let's go. You know what I mean? It's great. So for you, like, is that what you do? Because like when I hear, you charge $150 an hour, when you tell your students that who you're teaching, because obviously your clients pay it. Obviously
Yeah.
you have no problem getting clients. When you tell your students that, what do they say?
Sometimes you get the like, oh my gosh, I want to do that. That's so amazing. Like, I
Yeah.
can't wait to get there. And then you have other people who are just like the ones with the mental blocks that are like, oh, that's such a ripoff. I can charge less and do the same thing. So there's a lot of different responses.
What do you
It's just it depends on the person and their like their mindset.
so I and I'm what do you say to people who say that to you? Like, I can do the same thing for less. Like, what in my head, that irritates me, but I wanna hear what you think. You know what I mean? It's like, "So?"
Then
But
go
what do
for
you
it.
say?
Then go for it. If you want to charge less, by all means. I mean, you're only hurting the entire industry when you are undercharging. You're hurting every single person inside of the industry. When we all
Yeah,
elevate and we all expand and we all like grow and charge more, then we're setting the example and we are setting the standard.
yeah.
So when everyone gets on board and we can set a higher standard, it's better for everybody.
Right, right. No, that's a great point. I'm just here, I hear that because I've been in those situations where it's like, "That's ridiculous, I can do the same thing for cheaper." And I'm like, but I would tell people, like, not the same way that yeah, but you're not paying for a haircut. You're
Right.
paying for Patricia.
Yeah,
You know what
exactly.
I'm saying?
They're
Like,
not
and
going to get the
that's
same thing.
yeah, it's not the same thing. It's like, what makes I used to sell cars, and I would train people on how to sell cars, and they'd be like, "Well, how do you got 2 of the same cars at different dealerships, how do you sell that?" Right? And I'm like, "You, man. Yeah, they're not paying for a Honda Civic, man, they're paying for you.
Yeah, they're
They're
paying for
paying
the
for that
experience.
they're paying for that experience." Yeah, I'm sure if you took, some person who didn't care, they would tell you that Ruth's Chris and Outback tasted the same, but I assure you they don't.
Definitely not.
You know what I mean? And Ruth's Chris is just better, and they can charge more. And if you don't, and I love it because you go to Ruth's Chris or you go to like the Waldorf or something like that. You go to the Ritz. It's like, sure, you get a bed, but I assure you it's not the same bed. Like
Right.
I you think it is, but I'm telling you it's not. And it's
No,
the same
definitely
thing with
not.
haircut. You know what I'm saying? It's the same thing with your services. It's like you say it is, but I'm telling you it's not the same.
And it's so funny because I do like when I'm like teaching my students in my like education course, I always like compare the experience to staying at like a five-star hotel.
Yeah, yeah, because it's different, I remember um, the first time that I stayed at one, and then the first time I took my wife and we went to a nice hotel. I when I was in a certain industry, they would have a lot of conferences that like, they had a lot of conferences at the Waldorf or the Montauk, and that was great. I mean, they remembered your name, man. And what was crazy? I learned about the Ritz. I don't know if you knew this, but the Ritz Carlton, I didn't know this either, but they don't let their associates hit the floor and talk to a customer until they've gone through like their 3-month Ritz training.
Oh
Like
yeah.
they don't you can't even talk to it's not like, "Oh, hey, you're working at a hotel. There you go." It's like, man, they take that serious. You can't
They want a
could you imagine?
consistent experience, yeah, for their
Yeah.
customers.
It's 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 amazing. And so you need a Ritz-Carlton mindset.
I say
You need
that
a
all
Ritz.
the time.
Yeah.
They
But it's
know what you
true.
want before you even know what you want, and it's already
And if
there waiting for you.
Yeah, and not only that, but, like, you stay at the Ritz, then you go back, they remember you. They're like, "Oh,"
Mhm.
they already addressed you by name, but then they'll be like, "Oh, hey, Mr. Jensen, welcome back." You know, we remembered everything, we got everything ready to go. I remember the first time we stayed at, just like, you remember the first time you stay at, like, a crappy hotel, they're like, "Hey, here's the key," they give you all the directions, it's down the hall to the right, go up the elevator, but then we stayed at a nice hotel, and they're like, hold on, sir, somebody will be here, grab your bags, and they'll escort you to your room, and they'll show you around. I was like, holy cow, man, it's not the same. It's not. I don't
It's
care.
not the same.
So is that?
And the
I mean,
Yeah,
go ahead, go
and
ahead,
the
go ahead.
person with that cheaper mindset that they can do it for cheaper, they don't have the Ritz-Carlton or the Ritz-Carlton, they don't have that mindset. They don't
Yeah,
have the Ritz mindset. So,
yeah,
they can't deliver that because they've never experienced it for themselves and they don't understand the difference.
yeah,
So, that's why they
yeah,
can't compete because they don't have that Ritz mindset.
when I was training salespeople, I would make them go secret shop.
Mhm.
I really tried to make them go stay at a hotel. I was like, "Hey, listen, before we get into this, you need to go stay at like a Ritz-Carlton." And if they couldn't afford it, I wasn't really gonna push it. But I would make them go secret shop at dealerships that I knew were notoriously or dealerships, or I'd make them call in and send a lead into, we were selling software. I'd be like, "Hey, go send a lead to this." And I knew that these places were like notoriously bad at like the experience, right? Even though they sold the same thing that we did. And it would change people's minds. I'd be like, "Yeah, would you buy from them?" That was the question I'd ask when they get back, and then most of the time it was no. And I was like, "All right, then now we can start." We got a baseline, because
I love
it
that.
it matters. Yeah, it
It
matters. Yeah,
does.
because I like what you said. They've never experienced that. Like, how can you give somebody a Ritz Carlton experience if you've never had a Ritz Carlton experience?
Mhm. It's
Yeah,
true. I do the same thing with, the people that, either are working inside of my business or that come to one of my classes. I tell them to go to a super high-end salon. Just get a
heck
blowout,
yeah,
you
yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah.
And see what the experience is like. How are they doing it? Why can they charge what they're charging? And then duplicate that.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, duplicate it. We don't have to reinvent the wheel here. We don't have to
Yeah.
make this crazy. That's
Mm.
amazing.
I think that's the thing too. Everyone's trying to find the next big thing, but when you can find the really good things, refine them and make them better, that's
Mhm.
when you're successful.
Yeah, absolutely. And so Patricia, we'll wrap up here with and just got a few more questions, but you're going on a lot of podcasts. You're trying to get the word out there with everything going on. And my favorite question to ask is like, what's the biggest message that you're trying to share with people? What do you want people to know the most?
I think I want people to know that when they truly shift the mindset that they have inside of their business and switch the way that they are running their business from a manager to an actual leader, because there's a huge difference,
Mhm.
you can change your life and you can change the lives of others.
Yeah. And it's true. Like, if you're on your A game everybody wants to be on their A game when they're around A game people,
Mhm.
you know? Like, I wanna be like, when you go to the Ritz or you go to Ruth's Chris, it's a nice restaurant, you almost feel a little uncomfortable if you don't dress for the occasion.
Yep.
I mean, certainly you can, and I'm not saying, like, if you can't, you know what I mean? But you go there and you're like, and if you wanna dress for the occasion, you wanna have enough to give a nice tip, and you just wanna do these things because, like, that that's just the level that we're playing at right now, and, that's great. I
I
love
always
that.
like to compare it too to like your favorite teachers growing up. Like
Okay.
think about like and this goes when you're leading a team and you're trying to run a business and you're trying to get your staff to do what you need them to do.
Mhm.
Think about like the worst teacher you've ever had and think about
Yeah.
your level of work that you actually put into that class. How did you act in that class? Um, did you really want to participate? Did you do what you were told? Yeah, maybe, but like you weren't really in it to win it because you
Yeah.
really hated the person that was teaching, right?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
didn't really
yeah.
give you weren't really at your best level.
Yeah, I didn't really care, and I didn't even do my best with the
Yeah, and then
teachers that I
think
had.
about the most amazing teacher you've ever had that changed your life. Everyone has that amazing teacher.
Yeah,
Think about that experience. You always showed up on time, you were always your best, you always did above and beyond because you didn't wanna let that teacher down. The teacher never had to ask anyone for anything because there were people always willing to stand up and help that teacher do what they needed to do.
yeah,
Because that's a leader. The leader just needs to be their best and make people feel good and have good structures and have good systems. And then the people just stand up and do what they need to do because they want to be a part of what that teacher's doing. It's the
abso
same thing when you're running a business.
absolutely. You know what's crazy? And, people I found that people want to do things when they know what to do. When
Yeah.
you said that, I took that literally, and I was like, my worst teacher." They didn't tell us anything. They
Mhm.
played that game that, like the guess
You
what's in
figure
my
it
head
out.
game. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
you know? And my best teacher was like, "Hey, this is exactly how this is gonna go. This is
Mhm.
exactly what I'm gonna do, and this is exactly what I expect you to do." And it was like, "Okay, there's no questions." And then there's obviously a lot of other things, right? We like them. They're charismatic.
They
They
didn't
they
make you
made you
feel like crap if you did something wrong or if you didn't get
Yeah.
something.
They
Mhm.
made you feel good, you know what I mean? They made
Mhm.
you problem solve, and they
Safe.
challenged you. Yeah, it was great. Like, there were
Mhm.
no wrong answers. There was just learning,
Mhm.
and, yeah, that was great. I love that, and, it's something that I'm not gonna forget because that's a great way to put it.
Mhm.
Um, so I appreciate it, Patricia. I really loved our conversation. So for the people who are listening, wanna get involved, where can they find you? How can they reach out?
So, if you are interested in coaching, you can visit destroythehairdresser.com and you can request a discovery call and you can talk to our person that is in charge of that and he can get everything set up for you. You can also visit gracehandtiedmethod.com if you want to start incorporating luxury services inside of your business, if you're a hairstylist, and if you want to deep dive into marketing, social media, and mindset behind running a business with extensions. You can also check out my salon at Opulent Beauty Salon on Instagram.
Cool. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you being here, and I'll make sure that we put all of that in the card so that people know where to find you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. It was such a fun conversation.
Absolutely.